Not all African countries were colonized. 2 survived and 1 even thrived. Let's get into it. During the scramble for Africa, European powers like Britain, France, Belgium and Germany raced to carve up the continent of Africa. By 1900, nearly all African countries were colonized, except Liberia and Ethiopia. Liberia stayed free thanks to its support from the United States. But Ethiopia, they fought back and made a European kingdom surrender. Italy was a new country in the 1800s and desperate to form its own empire like Britain and France. They seized Eritrea and Somalia and set their sights on Ethiopia. They thought Menelik II would have been an easy trick. In 1889, Ethiopia and Italy signed a deal called the Treaty of Wakal. But the Italian version secretly said that Ethiopia was a protectorate of Italy. The Alhambric version said that they were merely friends. When Menelik discovered the lie, he tore up the treaty and Italy declared war. Italy assumed that it was going to be an easy and quick victory. After all, Europe had dominated Africa so far, right? Wrong. Menelik had been preparing for years. He played European rivals against one another, buying tens of thousands of modern rifles from Britain, France, and Russia. He didn't care who sold the guns. He took weapons, cannons, and ammunition from anyone willing to make a deal. And by 1896, Ethiopia's army was massive, around 100,000 soldiers, with modern weapons and not spears. Italy invaded from Eritrea, but Ethiopia controlled the terrain. Menelik set traps, blockaded supply lines, and forced Italy into bad ground near a place called Adwa. At dawn, on the 1st of March in 1896, Ethiopian forces attacked. They overwhelmed the Italians on every front. Italian officers were captured, entire brigades wiped out, and some Italians tried to run, but the mountains boxed them in. And by the end of the battle, Italy's dreams of founding an empire were shattered. Thousands dead, thousands more captured. Italy was humiliated and had to sign a treaty recognizing Ethiopia's sovereignty, and the world took notice. Ethiopia's victory became a symbol for every black and colonized nation, proof that Europe could be fought and that empire wasn't destiny. Whilst almost all of Africa was conquered, Ethiopia stood its ground. And this is the history that we are not taught. Here's a bit of history I bet you didn't know about. On D-Day, whilst tens of thousands of Allied troops stormed the beaches, one group of American soldiers stood out because they were black, unarmed, and carrying balloons. They were called the 320th Barrage Balloon Brigade, and without them, a lot more Allied troops would have died. A lot more. June 6, 1944, and the largest seaborne invasion is happening in northern France. Over 150,000 troops land in Nazi-occupied France. Most of us know the names of Utah Beach, Saving Private Ryan, and Band of Brothers. The 320th? Well, you've probably never heard of them. They were the only African-American combat unit deployed on D-Day, a segregated battalion with a strange but vital task, setting up barrage balloons to protect those on the beaches. And these aren't party balloons, these are massive blimps tethered with steel cables. Any low-flying German plane that tried to strafe the beaches would collide with one of these, get torn apart by the wires, or explode. The 320th landed at Utah and Omaha beaches, and whilst machine gun fire ripped through the air and mortars exploded all around them, they were setting up these blimps with hydrogen tanks that could explode at any moment. One mistake, one spark, and boom, you are gone. And yet they worked for 72 hours non-stop in order to protect those on the beaches, and in total silence from history. Back home in America, these soldiers couldn't even eat in the same restaurants as those they were protecting on the beaches. They were fighting for freedom abroad whilst living under Jim Crow laws back home. The US Army was still segregated, and white officers commanded them, with credit going pretty much everywhere else. And yet the French, the people they helped to liberate, gave them the Croix de Guerre. The US? Nothing. No medals, no spotlight, no inclusion in the films or textbooks. Take William Devaney. He was only 20 when he landed on Utah Beach. He did his job with bravery and precision, and he helped save lives, then returned to a country that barely acknowledged him. It wasn't until 2009, 65 years later, that he was recognized with the Legion of Honor by France. He was 84 years old, and his response? We weren't looking for medals, we were doing our duty. So the next time somebody tells you a story about D-Day, ask them if it includes those black soldiers carrying balloons, not guns, bombs, not rifles, and still put their lives on the line for a country that wouldn't fight for them. And that is the story of the 320th Barrage Balloon Brigade. And now you know it, so share.